the number of or the crime we witnessed, particularly in the area of banditry and terrorism. Does not have not provided any empirical evidence to prove or to support their position. But I would say that I want to provide another perspective. If you go back to the previous elections, yeah.
Please continue.
Okay, if you go back in the 2015 election, it was interesting what we saw. Even though at that time there was not much banditry, but we had terrorism full-blown in the southeast, in the northeast. We had elections. The present vice president-elect was the governor of Borno State. Elections were conducted and returns were made in all local governments in the Borno State. The entire 28 members of the House of Assembly also had their election done and they were returned. So there was, for the period of the election, there was no terrorism that was reported. If you go to 2019, it was the same thing. The presidential election held. In fact, the president got more votes than it has happened before. And in all the local governments, in all the constituencies, elections were conducted, and there was results were announced. So what we are seeing happening now in terms of the absence of terrorism and banditry during this past election is something that we have seen before. So, but we need to then interrogate to say, why was it like that? I think that's the question we should be asking. Why was it that at this particular time, the instances I've given you, that there was no banditry, there were no crisis when the election was taking place?
So what are your thoughts on that particular question, the why?
Well, if you ask me as a professional, what one can look at is that there could be some form of organization in these crimes, and there could be some of collaborations, there could be some of understanding between the political elites, the political elite that controls the system in those areas, and the criminals. So, because how do you explain it that in each of these elections, the criminal elements, they gave way for elections to take place, and after the elections, they were right back. And by the way, you need to understand that those who undertake banditry, those who are involved in banditry, are human beings. They live in communities. They live in communities. In most cases, they are known. Their family members are known. Their locations are known. So to say that things happen that allow elections to take place so that there can be continuity. So it is necessary that there's continuity, that government continues. And if elections are disrupted, it's a threat to democracy. So people perhaps will do whatever needs to be done to ensure that the election holds. And that's exactly what you have seen.
You know, that you, being an expert, have said that, look, this is your personal thought. I think it's very important because it does put out there the idea that, at least in the thought of some, there is some connection between the political class who are running affairs in certain areas and these very anti-state people. And so that seems to be something of a paradox, that, you know, politicians are supposed to be all about governance and, you know, the most important duty of any political order is to provide security. To now have the idea, even if it is no more than an idea, that politicians could actually be manipulating the banditry, kidnapping. It's a worrying thought.
Well, for me, okay, I can hear you now.
Yes, I'm silent so that you can speak.
Okay, well, the point I make is there is no empirical evidence, but I am saying that my trained mind tells me that, look, we are talking about 3 years. We are talking about 2015, 2019, 2023. We see the same scenario playing out. We see exactly the same things happening, particularly as it had to do with banditry and terrorism. And by the way, the current banditry we experience is inspired by terrorists that were driven from or were under pressure, and they left the northeast and they settled in the north centre. That you see, the footprint you see in those areas, that the terrorists are. We saw it happen. In 2019, we saw it happen, and now you are talking about it. The difference is that this year, there was this issue of Naira redesign, and funds were scarce, and therefore, these crimes, particularly, were reduced. But I'm just saying to you that it's not a yesterday event. It's happened before. We've seen it in 2 previous elections, and we are seeing it in the 3rd election. And the only explanation, because elections happen, and people are returned, they are returned to offices, and after that, criminality escalates again. And there must therefore be, you can see the issue of the witch cried in the night, and the day the child dies. You can't link this. I mean, you can't link this.
So it would appear, it's a criminal operation, but they would appear, I mean, I guess where I'm leading towards is, how do we actually affect this? Because they have outwitted the government's security apparatus. It doesn't matter what the authorities have tried to do, they have not been able to make the bandits go away. So the other aspect of it might be, maybe it's a much larger question, that until we bring development, which is the problem, until we bring development and have a surfeit of it, you know, this whole development thing, so there will be no, because it would look as if the bandits, in addition to making money out of their criminality, can only be operating because there's a lack of development. Or do you fault that kind of reasoning? Because I'm just looking at, so what would make the bandits go away?
Well, the bandits will not go away tomorrow. It's not wishful thinking that will make the bandits to go away. What will make the bandits to go away is if we take the necessary step as a nation. And by the way, the fact that we're going to have a new government inaugurated by May 29 provides us as a nation an opportunity for national rebirth. We can rethink the strategies that we have adopted over the past years, and then we can look at what the issues are. You see, we really need to look at our history, where we are coming from. We need to look at our experience. We need to look at today's realities. We need to look at what are the challenges that we're facing and the resources that are available for us to deal with those challenges. Then we need to design a fresh, well-thought-out national security approach. It will not just happen that bandits will go away, but the good news is that we can have a safer and more. We need to work at it. It is not going to be an activity for the military or the security agencies alone. It has to include every Nigerian. The new strategy will have to ensure that every Nigerian is brought on board, and that we focus more on community security. I know, of course, development is important, and we need to take all of them together. Development is important. While we are finding solutions, we need to also ensure that there is food on the table. We need to ensure that people have hope for tomorrow. We need to ensure that our youth are properly engaged. We need to ensure that the indoctrination that we see are dealt with. But, like I said, we need to rethink our national security strategy. We need to ask ourselves, the strategy we have adopted over the past 8 years, has it worked? If it has not worked, why? And where it has worked, why did it work? And therefore, what do we need to do going forward? So it requires deep thinking, utilizing the knowledge that we have, and know that by the time we put this on the table, it will become possible, once more, for somebody to travel from Lagos to Abuja by road and not be afraid. And we can do it. It is possible. It's possible within a space of time for us to completely restore security to a level that is much better than we are now. But like I said, It then depends on what we need to do. We need to look at this, that we need to take security back to the communities, because crime is local and solution to crime has to be local. The people who commit these criminalities are in locations, they are not spirit, they live in environment, people know them. By the way, people know them. The bandits we are talking about, people know them, people know their father, people know their parents, where they live and all that. So if we want to deal with these criminalities, we need to go back to the... For a long time, I have spoken about my own idea that we need to have a community-centered security strategy in which the community takes responsibility for their security. They provide the leadership. The security agencies can then provide the environment, but the community will do the necessary job to secure themselves, because every community have what we call the human dimension of security. It's peculiar to every community. If we understand what are the human dimension of security of the various communities, we'll build our security strategies around this fact. And then we can have a resilience, so that such a way that every community is resilient to attacks. They know what to do to prevent criminalities. They know what to do when there is a crisis. They know what to do thereafter. So like I'm saying that we need to rethink our security strategy and move it away from what we are doing now, in which case the Okada rider, who is, by the way, a very strategic person in the community, knows his role he's supposed to play. The Keke Napep person knows the role he's supposed to play. The traditional ruler, by the way, he should... Traditional ruler institution, the traditional institution have been left out. Incidentally, this is the most strategic institution that will require if we are going to be able to provide security in our communities. So we need to bring in traditional institutions, we need to bring in the clergy, we need to bring in all sorts of people and give them a role to play. And every community will be able to watch out for themselves. Like I said, the law enforcement agency is important. You know, you talk about community policing. And I said, we've reviewed community policing. It's a great idea. I studied community policing at advanced level. It's a great idea. But in the circumstance that we find ourselves in Nigeria, community policing will not solve our problem, because the policemen we have are few in between in terms of number. The training is a problem. The mobilization and motivation is a problem. Even the platforms, the equipment that they need to work are not available. So we then need to say, okay, what do we do to address the gap, the lacuna that is available? Because again, you say community policing, you are assuming that the community, either policing or security in those communities, will have to be the problem of the police, whereas the police cannot do it. We have seen they cannot do it. And so, like I said, we must find a new way of galvanizing everybody. All the law enforcement agencies need to be on. By the way, every community in Nigeria have got retired military men, police, secret service members. They have. We have all sorts of people. What are we doing with them?
So that's a piece of expertise right there. One moment, please.
Yes,
let me bring on.
Available.
Yeah. Let me bring on our first caller, Mr. George. Thank you very much, Mr. George, for holding on. Holding on for us. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Uncle Yori. I greet your guest. Uncle Yori, let me first of all remind us that 2015 elections, voting did not take place in all the local governments in Borno State. I remember there were some local governments that voting did not happen. What happened at that elections was that the residents in those local governments were in IDP camps at different points in Maiduguri and other places. They voted at IDP camps because in those IDP camps, they segregated them local government by local government in those places. That was where some of the local government voters voted. So what I also noticed is that when elections are approaching, our security men deliberately push back the criminals so that elections can... The kidnapping didn't stop during this cash crunch. We are all here. We are seeing situations where the kidnappers were asking for new Naira notes. Some were asking for dollars. So it didn't deter them. What I think is the problem of Yori is the political will to tackle this kidnapping and insecurity generally. If the security agents can push the criminals back during elections, something tells me that they can as well push them back permanently or deal with them. But if the political will is lacking, that cannot be achieved. So I agree to some extent with your guest that the coming government should re-strategize as to the approach to tackling insecurity. It is not something that cannot be done. It can be done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for calling in. So, Mr. Okoro, you had said earlier that these people are actually known. They have communities. They are parts of families, so people know them. But Mr. George, our first caller there, he brought up the whole matter about it. You heard him. It's not an impossible task as long as the political will is there. Since these people are known, their families are known, the political will. Give me your comments on that particular assertion.
Well, incidentally, I had, because in my PhD thesis, I studied, focused on the crisis, the headsmen, headers farmers crisis. And it gave me an opportunity to interrogate the political will, the aspect of the political will. Actually, in the fight against insecurity in Nigeria, the number one casualty, or what has been missing primarily, has been the political will. Political will means so many things. It means the competency of those who are in power. It means willingness to take certain action. It means affiliations, their beliefs, ideological beliefs, religious beliefs, ethnic beliefs. It means a whole lot of things. But this is what has been missing in the fight or in our struggle to deal with insecurity. Political will have been very scarce. It's not sure. Let me give you an example. When last July, Mr. Aldo Alero was to be given a title by the Yantodo Emirate in Zamfara State. Now, it was news. Everybody heard about it, that a well-known bandit kingpin that had been responsible for the death of so many people and have created so much problem was going to be given a title by an emir. And at that event, there were law enforcement agencies. The government was aware. Everybody was aware. This guy was, and the guy did say that he didn't even ask for that title to be given to him, but the emir thought otherwise. And Alero did say in an interview that he went around consulting elders in his community. Can you understand? Elders in his community. He went around consulting elders in his community whether to accept this title or reject it. So it means that these criminals in most cases are not hidden. That's why I said we need to go back to a community-centered security strategy, because we know these people, they are not spirits. They are human beings. So if the community, if there is a political, and the governor was aware, and what did the governor do? Okay, they suspended the emir. Why did you do this without our permission? That's what was said. It wasn't that he did the wrong thing. Why didn't you refer to us before you did it? And only recently, the emir was reinstated.
Exactly.
So you ask yourself.
Exactly.
One
moment, please, because somebody else is on the line. I beg your pardon for interrupting. I know there's a slight delay between us, but Reverend Dominic has been on the line waiting for a while. Thank you very much for your patience, Reverend Dominic. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Yori. Can you hear me loud and clear?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can hear you, Reverend.
It gets called Alhaji Subai, if I pronounce well. And I made this suggestion that the bandits among us, the Boko Haram, are known by governors. And Subai is certainly very well. I do not, but I know what I'm saying. But I don't say yes saying. Now, what the guest is saying that we know these people. They're not ghosts. If you want to take care of the way, but just let me tell you, the collaboration or collab between what I call maybe the bandits and the politicians. Yori, one-on-one, I've seen most of these bandits in Abuja where they are renting. Yori, if you see these people, you will believe most of them have confessed have taken 20 million. But the person who was interviewing that day, the shoe he wore was an old betel slipper. The clothes he wore. How could a man have collected 20 not change his papers, will not change his clothes. Which means the man is a full soldier. The one is kidnapping for somewhere, maybe in Abuja, maybe in New York. Which means banditry have their organs, and they may be politicians, like your guest was saying. Number 3, the hopeless situation. If my friend George said that what happened in the election, that the military will push the criminals back, and after the election they allow them to come back, it's a hopeless situation. It means we're in charge of what's happening and push them back. And when it frees us, we allow them to come and attack us. Lastly, I was in the media house 4 months ago, December, and I expressed fear that by the way the bandits have operated, especially in Ondo, they went to church in Ondo and opened fire. When we start campaign fully, can they run into campaign ground and open fire or explode an explosive? But throughout the whole campaign, Yori, there was no gunshot. There's a collapse somewhere. Either we agree what is happening to us and fight it as what is happening to us, we put this politics that made them go off and on and keep killing innocent Nigerians. The only thing I want to let Mr. President know, the President let him leave flyover and skyscrapers and an NPC and take care of security. It is a living man subsidy. It is a man that's living that will enjoy skyscrapers. It is a man that's living that will fly in air. Let us all this thing, and that is disappointment me and Judge and other people has. That Buhari, who we think as a general, and could fight this in standstill, have lead us worse and it made us in 2015. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, and thank you very much for calling in, Reverend Dominic. Actually, Mr. Okoro, I've been calling you Mr. Okoro, but you spoke about a PhD thesis there. Should we have been addressing you as Dr. Okoro?
If you like.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. We take that correction. So we'll just take a quick break now. You probably want to respond to some of those things that were said. Let's take a quick break so that we won't have to interrupt you. Stay with us, please. We'll be right back, and we'll continue taking your calls.
Coming up in the month of May, the 1st is International Workers' Day. The 3rd is World Press Freedom Day. Anniversary of President Yar'Adua's demise in 2010, while from 12th to 16th of May are days dedicated as United Nations Global Road Safety Week. The 16th of May is International Day of the Boy Child. World Hypertension Day is on the 17th, and on the 27th is Children's Day. 29th of May is Nigeria's Inauguration Day, the commencement of a new 4-year tenure of another administration. On the 31st is World No Tobacco Day. Brace yourself and tune in to TVC News for special reports and analyses on these days.
Okay, welcome back, and our guest is Dr. David Okoro. He's a security strategy, governance, and development expert, and will banditry and all sorts of kidnapping and criminality. And just before we went on break, Reverend Dominic had called in from Alimosho. And Dr. Okoro, you heard him give his own understanding and expose and give suggestions on how we might address this problem, especially the new, shall we say, opportunity that a change of guard come the 29th of May will provide.
Well, like I said, the problem of insecurity in Nigeria can be addressed. You just need proper thinking, clear-head thinking, and then the willingness. So what do we need to do? We've spoken about political will. That's number one. In fact, if all that the new president can do begin to address these issues, number one is political will. Take, for instance, the issue of oil theft in the Niger Delta. It's part of our national security concerns. That, beyond the military interventions and security, is a pure matter of political will. And for me, the issues of banditry is also a matter of political will. So if the president-elect, when he's inaugurated, takes the firm decision that he will provide the needed political will to fight criminalities and the other violent crimes in the country, that would have been 40% success. Then the next is the capacity of our law enforcement agencies, of our security and law enforcement agencies. I give you an example. We were told that kidnapping will be addressed and other vices when we do our national NIN registration, that way every phone call that is made can be tracked. Okay, so we did it. And then we also said that to acquire certain equipment. After they were funded, the NIN is done, I can ask you, my friend, to say how many kidnappers have been tracked on the basis of the telephone call they make to negotiate. Remember that every kidnapping, there's negotiation. And when negotiation is done, telephones are used. And those telephones can't be located with geolocation equipment to the very point, to the exact point. So you ask yourself, why is it that we have not been able to utilize technology to deal with issues like this? You also recall that there were times when the Kaduna State governor had come to say that using their own alternative security intelligence, they have been able to locate where bandits were operating, and they point them to the law enforcement agent, and they refuse to go and take action. You go to an ordinary police station in your area, you find that there is problem of capacity. So if we don't, you deal with the issue of political will, we also will need to deal with the issue of capacity. Capacity in terms of training of our people, of our security agents, capacity in terms of provision of platforms that they need to work with. So if you allow my talk, this is just the second point. Maybe you want to ask a question that will go on.
Well, if you could just hold it there, and I'll allow you to continue, sir. But Kesandu in Owerri has been waiting to join the program. Good morning to you, Kesandu.
Good morning, Uncle Yori, and good morning to your guest, Kesandu Kempo. I want to say I'm very much pleased with the explanation of and take of your guest. Honestly speaking, you know, when we did all those NIN and all those issues, and up to this moment, we are yet to see any reasonable result. But Uncle Yori, you see, somebody, I think the first caller said something, and that is the primary problem we are facing today. It is about having the political will to tackle this insurgents and terrorism. It is about the sincerity of the leadership of this country. Uncle Yori, the truth about it is that we have established one sacred fact, that these guys or these bandits are not spirits. They do not vanish. That is just the truth. So if they do not vanish, where do they sleep? Where do they reside? Where do they camp? Uncle Yori, some of us that live in the east here hear about the forest, Sambisa forest. How big is this forest, please? How big is this forest? And some of us have also had some truth about what actually goes on in this so-called Sambisa forest. So for me, I think some people are playing politics with the lives of Nigerians. We should be their primary responsibility. I strongly believe that any day, any president wants to end insurgency, we can also recall what a former military head of state once said in this country about insurgency lasting for more than 24 hours. But I feel that anybody who wants to end insurgency in this country as a president has all it takes, by virtue of what we have provided, by virtue of the power that is enshrined in the Constitution, embedded in the president. We can end this thing. We are just appeal. Nigerians are not asking for too much. All we ask is this protection of life and property. We are doing a whole lot for ourselves as citizens. So this is all we ask of the government.
All right.
To protect us at the state and federal level. This is all we ask, and we're not asking for too much. Nobody is more Nigerian than another. Mr. President should just provide us with this singular responsibility, and it is our right as a people. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Kesu, for calling in and for waiting. Okay, back to you, Dr. Okoro. Would you like to continue, please? We broke your train of thought,
yes, please. But
hopefully you can also include commentary, if any, on Kesandu's remarks.
Okay. So if I can go on.
Yes, please.
Okay. So I was just saying that first is the issue of political will. And political will, of course, means that the president makes up his mind. I want a secure and safe nation. It's possible. The president makes up his mind and then follow up with commitment to that political will. Then I talked about the capacity of the security agencies. Do they have the capacity? So because, like I've just said, We have situations where a state governor tells you that he has informed the military where bandits were hiding, violent bandits, and the military refused to take action. It's in public space. So you need to ask yourself, so why? Why do we have situations where there are violent crime taking place, or people come to report, provide intelligence? You know, many times they say, we don't have intelligence, we need to provide intelligence. And I ask a question. I live in Abuja. The night when the Kuje prison was broken into, the information was available. When the operation was going on, I had people who called to say, look, we're in Kuje, we think that there's a break into the jail, and we can see that prisoners were on the streets. The information was available. In that area, there were military forward operation bases. The police station was not far from there. All manner of security apparatus and assets were in that environment. So you ask yourself, what happened that night? So it talks about issue of capacity. So if you go around, look at the entire country, because it's like right now, every district or every zone of the country has got its own intractable security situation. And then you ask yourself, how did we, in spite of the fact that we have a full complement of security agencies, how did we get to where we are? That's why I said, look, having a new government provides us an opportunity to rethink what kind of security apparatus that we have, and whether it can deliver on what the vision of the incoming president is. If it cannot deliver on it, then we have to sincerely reevaluate the situation, and then determine how to restructure the security sector so that it can deliver on what Mr. President that is coming want to achieve. And I want to say that the other is the role of government agencies. Agencies that are used to run government, the ministries, the parastatals, and all that. Their role is critical. They are supposed to deliver service to the citizens. If Ministry of Works, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Trade and Commerce, then you can talk about development being available. You can talk about services. You can talk about employment. But when the agencies fail, they complicate the issues of security. So even if every other thing is right, and the agencies continue to underperform, then the issue of security, having a safe and secure nation, will be difficult. So the president also will need to ensure that all the agencies of government, the civil agencies of government, are up and doing, and that they are performing, and that in terms of appointment, that you have the right people, and that the right environment must be created to evaluate those who are put in position and how they deliver. In fact, every person who gets into position must be given a template of what is expected to do. Then, of course, you talk about the fact I spoke about community participation.
I beg your pardon. I wanted to actually interject. I'm so sorry. To interject again. Mr. Joshua in Irewolede has been waiting to contribute for quite a while. Good morning to you, Mr. Joshua. Go right ahead, please.
Okay, Uncle Yori. Good morning, and good morning to your guest. I appreciate his talk. Very, very beautiful. Uncle Yori, I subscribe to humanity. I think the human life comes before anything else. I've also been following the president-elect. I think I can tag him a humanist for the fact of the structure in his home. He has a wife that is a pastor, he's a Muslim, and I haven't had him being an extremist in terms of religious views. So I hope he subscribes to the value, the worth of a human life. I think that's what is missing in our country. They count people as number.